Okay, let's get to the last part of the tutorial. No, not the last part, the fourth part. Here. Fourth part, using Citavi to organize references. Now, this is not really relevant for the case that I just showed you because you had 3 references and you don't need to organize them. But in our project here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this because this is really cute. This is not the issue. If you write a seminar paper with 3 papers, you don't need Citavi. If you write a seminar paper with 50 references, and if you write a master thesis, something like that, a PhD, and you have hundreds of references which you have in your mind, you're not citing all of them, but you have hundreds in there, and you want to know where what is written and so on, then you need Citavi, because then your mental capacity might, in my case at least, is not sufficient to keep an overview. And then you just don't need to have a list of citations, but you need to have an overview of them. That means you need to be able to find a paper that you had read some time ago, and you need to have some kind of system to do that. And if you do it manually, it's going to be hopeless. Now, this is my personal Citavi database for my master thesis, and you can see that I have 400 different titles, exactly 400 apparently. And I haven't read all of them, but I categorized a lot of them. And just to give you some examples, I wanted to show you my category system. Once I have an article, like, let me look for some very representative article. This one, for example. No? Let me look for one. Okay, here is one that I read. I use categories to sort the articles. And if you look at my categories, these are my categories. This is the first window that I didn't explain to you earlier. Here it is. These are the categories I created. So in the case of corruption, for example, I have mainly I have the macro issues of corruption, for example, corruption in infrastructure, corruption in the environment, corruption in lobbying, freedom, democracy, all of this thing, conflict, education, inequality, health. I try to sort this. This is different for every topic that you're dealing with. And you have to think about whether you want to have one big database for all of your papers, if they're all somehow related, or whether you want to make a different database for a special seminar paper, if it's a totally new topic. Really depends. And I did a big thing on my master's thesis, corruption, so this is my big base. You have subcategories and subcategories of subcategories. And, for example, types of corruption, method, lab experiments, and there you have representative sample things and not representative, all kinds of things. You have to be creative in this. You have to find out which categories are best for you and which make sense. And at the end of the day, there are some categories that will not be filled. Health, for example. Others are totally overcrowded, so you have to make subcategories. It's just about you. If you need if you need an article on finance, then you can go here and you can see in this section that these are the articles that are somehow related to finance. At some point in time, I thought that these articles are very related to finance. And how do you categorize an article? First of all, you click on the article. You have it here. Then you go to Overview, Categories, and you make a double click or you click on this pen. You can maximize low, and these are your categories. And now you can create new categories, you can create subcategories, you can move them around up or down, you can shift them in any possible way. Use all the tools that are available here. And if you want to add a lot of articles, then you can just look at the 3 most recent. So for example, if you want to add 5 articles to framing and leniency, then whistleblower protection and survey, then you can always add them here, because these are the last 3 you had. So this is very easy. So you won't have to select them from the whole list, because if you have a lot of categories and you unfold all of them, you're going to have a long list. And you can give one article various different categories. In my case, I differentiated from the content, micro and macro, then the method, the types of corruption, the actors, is it about firms or is it about individuals, politicians, groups, cultures, all of these things can be used. And you can also look at your work progress. You can, for example, give a category read or not read, have to read, not useful, bad methodology, have to quote, all of these things. You can really be creative with this. And this, at the end of the day, is going to help you. If you, depending on how long how far-sighted you are, how long you want to work on something, it's really helpful if you don't have any idea about finance and corruption, and then you just click on finance and you see all those papers that you categorized, and then you can get into the topic very quickly again. So that's very, very helpful if you have a long-term project to be to work on this. And here you can see, for example, I categorized this paper. I didn't use all categories for the paper I currently have, this one. I only used categorized it in macro and in method. So this is a finance, and it's a macro study on finance. Okay, so this is about how creating categories. This is also about how to assign categories. That's also what you have already learned. What else? Yeah, maybe all that's missing is to look for categories, and you can look for categories by selecting categories from a list. You can also select several categories. Citavi is pretty cool on this, I respect, by using filters. If you click on X, you don't have any filters at the moment, or if you open Citavi, you most commonly don't have any filters. And then you can select filters. For example, you only want to select the category resource. No, let's look for a big one. Transparency versus organizational complexity. So now these are the categories in here. And now you can select another filter within the selection by category. And these are the categories that you have that already have the first filter, the transparency and organizations. So you can see that only 2 articles match both. So these are the 2 articles that have both categories. And by this method, you can easily really select all the articles you've ever read to these 2 pieces, if that is what you want to do. And you can see the categories here again with the numbers. The nice thing about Citavi is if you change categories, the names or the order, subcategories, etc., it automatically changes for all articles, and you don't have the problem that you've renamed something and it hasn't been transferred or something like that. If you organize this by a word or paper or any other method, you're going to really fail, because you're going to have to change this all over again several times, and you need some kind of automatic mechanism to change it for you. Okay, so I think there's a lot of all on categories, but this is only relevant if you have big databases. And the second important thing I wanted to talk about are keywords. Keywords are pretty much the same as categories. It's just a different system, but it's actually pretty much the same. They don't have a hierarchical order like categories, but they're just keywords. You can also have several keywords per article. Here you, for example, see I added the keywords abstract, conclusion, introduction. This keyword tells me that I've already read the abstract, the conclusion, and introduction of a paper. And apparently that was all the time I had, or that was all the paper gave me. I know everything. I don't need the methodology, and I don't need the specific results. I just need a conclusion. So personally, I did it in a way that I used the categories for the content of a paper and used the keywords for the my state of work on the article, so that I know what I read, and I know, for example, if I read a full article and I'm looking for an article I read, then I don't have to look through the articles I haven't read. And by searching for the keywords, search by keyword, read everything. This says read everything. Now I know exactly which papers I read. I haven't read so many, or at least I haven't marked that I read so many papers. These are the keywords that these are the things that this is my status of work. And I use the system because the problem with keywords is a lot of articles have keywords. The authors can select the keywords, and they're German, they're English, they're Spanish, they're exactly the same in some cases. And personally, I think they're pretty useless. As you can see, each keyword is mostly used only once. So I don't use keywords so often. I only use keywords to show my personal state of work, and to sort them nicely, I add a exclamation mark at the beginning. This is my working status, and I add a plus for special notes. For example, this guy is my Lucas is my supervisor, and I have some kind of connection with this paper with Lucas. So that's how I use keywords. And every paper I read gets a keyword. I read the abstract of almost all papers actually, and I always try to keep myself up to date on what I know and what I haven't processed, what I'm currently working on. I'm tired, I have to go to bed. The next morning I want to read the paper, continue the paper, so on and so forth. So that's how I use keywords. And you can combine keywords with, you can select anything here. You can also add blue and red symbols. What they mean depends on what you want them to mean. And then it's also helpful, for example, important. You just make a red flag and show this is important. And blue flag, maybe you have to check this, something like that. And then you can select according to any possible filter combination that you want. And this is really helpful. So you can add a certain category with a certain filter, only the blue ones, but not the red flags. So you want to exclude the red flags. For example, if you do this, then you can invert a selection, so you don't want the red flags, etc. So it's really easy to get an overview. And this is what we wanted to do here. Organize references, and it's really easy to organize references. Of course, doesn't come naturally. You have to do it yourself. It costs work and time, but if you do it well, you really gonna have a great database, and you're gonna get around my. Wait, how do you get this thing back? Here. You're gonna get your 400 articles in one. You're gonna get around your 400 articles and won't lose oversight with Citavi if you use it well. So this is the fourth part of the tutorial.